but a different symbol to represent, what should be the relationship between the city and the university and knowledge. I was also gonna suggest that we do a call for artists, that they apply good flag design principles, the 5 that we heard about from some residents, and ask for submissions from the community with those criteria, that it adheres to the 5 principles and that it fits what previous councils have voted to be our kind of basis for the flag design. And then ultimately council would select, or if the committee were to select, I do think council should have a say in selecting the final flag after a significant amount of public discussion. We could show it at Heritage Fest, have council members show these different flags. The one that's ultimately selected, we would purchase, pay the designer for, and make it accessible for free to everyone in the city. So if they want to print stickers of it, if they want, basically make it, purchase it at the city and then let people use it as they like. So that's my suggestion. I could think of it together. If council thinks so, or not, if you don't.
John? I thought you had your hand. Oh. Anybody else?
Read
Mike?
my brainwave.
Wait a minute, John, what?
You just read my brainwaves. I was thinking.
Got anything?
Well, I know you said that they had more than one design that came to the committee that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see those, those should be offered up to you just to look at, see what kind of, where they were going and thinking, and I think that would be a great start.
I don't know whether there ever was. Robin, you have your hand up?
No, I was just waiting to see.
All right, it's up to you people, the staff is looking for direction.
Make your motion.
Mr. Mayor,
What?
can I ask you a quick question?
We're not in a motion, so you can't.
Excuse me. Cough. My question was, I think you noticed we forwarded to you guys, and I just don't want to not ask the question if you actually make the motion. I'm smiling because it sounds funny, but like the national president of the Flag Society of America emailed from the West Coast and said he would love to help us, and then like the secretary of the association sent a similar email. I don't know how you want to include that, or if you just say thank you very much, but
Is that Roger?
we can, for those that watch Big Bang, Patty pointed out, it's just like the old Big Bang episode where Sheldon had his flag series. So, I don't know, I just, maybe leave it up to the local committee if they want to reach out to those national folks, maybe that's the way to go, but just, they were kind enough to express their willingness to volunteer to help, I didn't want to forget it.
Yeah.
Just before you make a motion, I'd be aware of the cost. If we're gonna fly somebody from California, that'd be cost. Heidi?
Yeah, more discussion. I like the idea of a committee coming up with a design or more than one, however they choose to come up with those designs. But I also like the idea of having public input, that Gwen was talking about, so that it feels like a community endeavor, not just, okay, we've got one committee working on it, now we're gonna have another committee working on it. I think it would really be nice to have something like that to offer at the Heritage Festival. And, so the committee would work out the details, in my opinion.
Karen?
So would you, I think both ideas are great, why not charge the committee and let them come up with the details, but some mandate public input and design, right? And maybe, like a competitive type thing where they set the parameters and put out requests for proposals for citizen designs for the committees, and then the committee can ultimately decide what they like, one of the designs that they like, as opposed to saying, a committee trying to create a flag, right? Let them create the process and the competition or challenge, I guess, the people. And I think I'm sure we could come up with some money that we could offer as a first, second, third prize or something like that too. That's always a nice incentive. I'm sure there's gonna be artists on there working on it, and you should get paid for the work too. Just like any other commission piece of art that we do.
Right?
Well, like I said before, I think the last meeting I said, when they designed this flag in 1975, what was it, fifth grade?
Yep.
There was no computers and no little apps on your phone where you could design stuff on the fly. I said, this is an open opportunity for everyone to give your ideas of what, you know, what should the flag look like. Like I said, a third grader could do it in 10 minutes. But you won't get accepted or.
Technology is a little bit different now.
It is, yes.
Yes.
Well, I do like the idea of having an RFP, putting that out to the public for some kind of a contest.
But the commission, I'm sorry, the commission could be in charge of doing that, right? Creating that.
Yeah, it would be like more of an ad hoc committee just
Yeah.
for that purpose. It might be that we also want to set some parameters on timing, like to have a design by the end of the summer or something like that. Would that be too late for people?
It's fine, I mean, before the end of the year, I think is a very reasonable.
It'd kind of be nice to, or I think a timeline is certainly necessary for design and then finalization. Seems like end of the year could probably be possible, but you're gonna need time to decide there. So a timeline on the RFPs, you have to go out at a certain time, they have to be submitted by a certain time, and the ultimate decision is determined on such and such a date also.
Would that not be up to the committee?
Yeah, well, yeah, but we're just trying to set some parameters for it.
Any more comments? Want to go to the audience? Anybody from the audience like to speak briefly on this? But give your name and address for the record.
It's Kenny Crookston, 631 Vine Street. I think those are awesome ideas, bringing up the ad hoc group, also as far as bringing the community involvement to kind of take a look at what's being brought forward so there's more buy-in. I think that's an awesome idea. I think what would be important is, like you said, parameters, so it doesn't drag on. Mr. Mayor, I know you don't want this to go on for 4 more years as well. So, you know, if there's...
When these people can make a decision, they can.
So, you know, I think, no, I agree though. I think if there's good parameters around when something should be delivered, redesigns you want delivered, let's get that kind of put down so we can bring that in front and show the public and make a selection and move forward. But I think, you know, bringing the national head of the flag design committee or whatever it is, I think that's awesome too. It brings in extra people. It gives us a little, a little oomph on that as well. Something to stand behind. So I think it's great. And if I could be a part of that, I'd love it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Name and address for the record, please.
Okay, Valerie Landis, 409 West Grand Street. I will just add to what the previous person said, is I think all your ideas are great. Let's hybrid them, have a committee, have one council person on it, invite anyone that wants to submit a idea or flag drawing, come to that committee meeting, so they have to do it in those parameters, have a timeline on it, and then show it out to the public in all the community activities that are happening this summer, and then at the end of the summer, vote on a final design based off of the popularity and what you're hearing from your constituents and everybody's view on council, what you think is the best design. I say incorporate the flag corporation. They could be on remote, virtual, they don't have to fly here. This can be done on a very easy budget, have a monetary value prize for the winner, and then bring in the community involvement. But have it at all the festivals, all the street fairs, whatever's going on with Main Street Kent, and advertise the 3 designers for the 3 final proposal designs. And then I think that is a hybrid of everybody's ideas here, but we'll have set meetings, and then those set meetings, anyone can attend from the community. If somebody wants to submit a design, they do it in that format, so we make sure it falls under those perimeters of a good flag design. and then have the input from the corporation of the flags.
Thank you. Anybody else? Back to council for motion.
Okay, I'll do the motion. It seemed to me like, listening to everybody, that the structure is already there. So basically, all we need to do, my motion is to form the committee and have them set up the guidelines that were discussed.
That's your motion?
Do we want, what, five members? We'll try for 5, anybody wants a minute, we do that.
And a council person?
Yeah, I'll be a council person.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Discussion on John's motion. Further, John? Further discussion, Mr. Brown?
I think we need to put the parameter of the, submit a recommendation to council by the end of the year.
Oh, definitely, we want it voted and done by then. I think that could be part of the framework that they set up, the committee sets up.
So you're going to put that in your motion?
We can put it in there.
I
When?
just have a question, so for the
On
flag.
the motion?
It's a
We're on the
question.
motion now.
We're on the motion, it's a
All right.
question about the motion, whether or not we should state who is voting for the flag. Is it the committee or is it council as a whole? Like who's ultimately making the final decision should probably be included so that we don't have a whole lot of people who think they're voting on it.
And the council would be the final decision.
So they would submit a recommendation
Right.
to the council.
The committee would submit like several or whatever, however many they want to submit, and then council would ultimately make the
Yes.
decision.
Put all the things together that we heard this evening, and the committee can do that, put it in a structure and make it happen.
Okay, but that wasn't in your motion.
I know.
I'm gonna ask for a vote, and I'm gonna ask you to not pass it and have John restate his motion with all the variables that were added. Is that fair, John?
Can withdraw his motion.
Everybody in favor of John's motion signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it fails. John, you wanna make your motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Excuse me. I make a motion that we get a flag committee together, volunteer with at least one council member, there could be 2, a total of 5 or 6, whoever volunteers. And we have, they will accumulate methods of getting a flag. They will select the winners. When it's over, prior to the end of the year, council will review all the entries and choose the one that we want to be the city flag.
Does that cover everybody's?
No,
Robin, to the motion.
Your motion.
Yeah, I'm speaking to it, Mo.
All right.
We can't have 1 or maybe 2. It's gonna be 1 or 2. What is your motion?
Either one. At least 1, no more than 2
But,
council members.
okay, so you're not gonna state specifically it's 1. Well, I was looking for a motion to either
No,
have 2 or you have 1.
No, because
maybe.
we might get one good one, and we might have enough people that aren't council members that want to be on. So we want a small group that can work together.
Further, Robin?
I'll second that.
Second? All right. Is there any further discussion from you? All right, we're gonna vote on the motion. All in favor of John's motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, okay. Can I ask this question, John? Are we going to do the regular advertising for a committee? Like we do every other committee?
I think we ought to do some newspaper advertising and try to figure out how you're gonna say there might be a cash award for the best thing for prizes. I think that's people who think so.
I'm worried how we're gonna advertise for a committee.
We're gonna have to advertise in every meeting we can.
When?
I think that we can advertise it, through social media
Yes.
and perhaps,
It's
you know,
important
if
information. Yeah.
if newspaper wants to do it, but since it's not a formal committee as.
No,
a
it
city,
is.
I-
It is.
it-
You just formed a formal committee, so we need to,
That's why
so-
I'm asking.
so
Are we
Amy
trying
needs-
to go through the regular process?
Amy
I
needs
can
to go
advertise.
through her
yeah,
normal
we
process.
can't do that.
Yeah.
We have to advertise it, the regular process, and
Make it not look like a lawn ad for a car.
Okay,
I think we got it.
got it. And I do have a bunch of names that have submitted interest to me already, so I think we'll be able to get a committee pretty quickly.
All right, we're gonna move on. All right, the next item on is consideration of the NAACP proposal that was submitted to us on December 15th. I first gotta say something. Some of the rumors going around were very misleading and actually not truthful. And I think more or less it's hurting the cause more than it's helping the cause, because people are going around with misinterpretations of what we're doing here. Last month, Mr. Rower gave an overview of what Heart and Soul has been doing in this community. The next step, which was tonight, is to take in consideration the letter from Dr. Geraldine Nelson, president of the NAACP, who wrote a letter on the 15th of 2021, and that's what we're going to address tonight. So I'm going to ask Ms. Nelson to come to the podium.
Podium.
I thought I was in church. You're hoping I was in church. And your proposal that you submitted in December, that's what we're going to talk about. Is it the same or is it changed or what?
Okay,
Give your
first,
name and address for the record, it's
Geraldine Hayes.
standard.
Yeah, Dr. Geraldine Hayes Nelson, 795 Atmore Drive. And the current NWC president's coming now.
All right. Thank you. 1502 Garner Road. I'm in Akron. I've been in at Kent State for 35 years, and I've worked in the community with Town Hall 2 for over 10 years volunteering. So I just wanted to share a few things.
And I want to say, before she shares, because as you know, I've stepped down in that role, but as we have said, the one thing that I do want to say that's in the letter, I know the word racism. I know it raises a lot of flags within. And I want to make sure for clarity, I'm not saying that Kent City Council is racist. I'm saying that we need to have a commission on inclusion. And so those are the words that I want to say to correct the record, but I think that the current president is the person that will be addressing these items to it as we've made the transition. And from our city manager's presentation, we were in transition, my stepping down and bringing my vice president who's been on board at the same time I've been the president. And so we were in transition, so all I want to say is that she's going to be speaking on behalf. We have several members of our executive board here, and they can also address. So at this point, the letter is there. I do not want to rescind the letter. There's some of the language in the letter, but now that we've gotten a little more information from the city at the previous meeting, I think it's just the time that we continue to have the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the only thing that I would like to add is I would like to take some time, since I just found out Friday that we would be discussing the letter. I would like to take some time with my executive board to go over it and share why this Commission on Inclusion would add value. We would like to have some time to present on the next council meeting if possible as to why.
Let me correct you, it won't be at the council meeting, it'll be at the committee meeting. Our committee meetings are the first Wednesday of every month, our council meeting's on the third Wednesday.
Well, the first Wednesday?
First Wednesday. So what you're asking for is to come back with a presentation?
Yes, so we'll be able to share why we think a committee on inclusion would add value. Okay, but we do have a few people that would like to share some things. And Christie, that's on the executive board, if we have time.
Come to give your name and address and,
Good evening, I'm Christy Anderson, my address is 1530 South Boulevard in Kent. And I actually have handouts in order to shorten what I was gonna say. Am I allowed to give you handouts?
yeah, you can get, and make sure the clerk has it so she gets everything correct on that.
Okay, and there should be a copy for everybody. Thank you. I represent the Kent Interfaith Alliance for Racial Reconciliation and Justice, which I know is a mouthful. Our abbreviation is KIFA, K-I-F-A. And we were part of the conversation over a year ago when you'll recall that the rock was being painted on campus with some hateful language. And that's what prompted KIFA to stand up and come to council. And at that point, we were simply asking for the city to be more proactive, especially in welcoming students of color coming to campus who were telling us that they were fearful even to go downtown after seeing these statements and were quite unnerved. So what I'd like to do is follow up on something from the last meeting that is connected to this conversation, and I'm only going to take a couple of minutes. This is with regard to the heart and soul conversation. I want to thank council certainly for providing the information that we reviewed at the last meeting. I personally love Heart and Soul. I've been a member since day one. I've sat through the consultants' presentations, in fact, twice. I saw the Orton family consultants speak and have been very enthusiastic about it. As you probably know, the goals are to certainly celebrate the city of Kent. Enhancing civility, getting citizens engaged in the community, building on the city's assets. And ideally, a final report will be issued that is supposed to be used as a guide to help the city with visioning its future. So I appreciate this. It certainly shows that the city is interested in citizen input and strengthening the democratic process. At the point in time that the group started to train volunteers to go out and interview residents, because that really is the bulk of the data through Heart and Soul are what they call stories from the residents. I stepped back from that because I didn't want to be involved in the collecting of the stories. Rather, I'm hoping to be involved with more the analysis end of it. But I have to say that I haven't received any emails since the pandemic started, so I don't know what the status of the group is, and I'm hoping certainly that it's still continuing. I believe it is, and would like to be involved. So what I'm saying is based on my in-person involvement with the group before the pandemic. The questions that are asked of residents are asked in a very positive way. That's the model that they use. So they ask questions like, what do you like about Kent? What would you like to see in the future? And what's interesting about it is they don't ask, what are your concerns? What are your issues? They take the question, what would you like to see in the future? And tease that information to see what's not there as a way of identifying issues. So I just wanted to point out, it's not directly ascertaining what some of the issues are, but hopefully we'll be successful still in uncovering that. The success of the process, in my mind, really relies on getting a representative sample of the community. And I'll mention that we've been putting together a lot of information, and one of the things in the handout, which I'm not going to go over at all, is some of the demographic information, but I just wanted to lift up the fact that 22% of the people living in Kent are not Caucasian. So 1 out of every 5 people in Kent are a racial minority. When I was participating on the group, it was a diverse group in terms of age. It was not so much in terms of gender, race, and economic status, which is not to say it's anyone's fault. We all recognize that there are some people who just, low income in particular, who don't have the ability to become engaged when they're just working to survive day to day. But it's a concern in gathering information, and especially intimate stories from people, if you don't have people doing the interview who reflect some of the same demographics as the people that they're interviewing. So I want to raise that issue as a concern, but hopefully that's not going to be an obstacle. So I guess the next parameter in terms of the success is assuming it's a representative sample. How is that information going to be conveyed in the final report? And here's where I think it gets a little sticky, and part of the reason I'd like to be involved is that we are a democracy and we pay attention to the majority. And that creates a dilemma. And I'm sure all of you are faced with this as elected officials. You have to pay attention to the majority, but you represent everybody, including people with disabilities, different sexual orientations, different religions, races. And there's a tension there. And I can see that happening with the final report because you want to make visible what the majority of people want, but you've also got to lift up the voices of the minority as well. And throughout our society and the democracy, that just is a challenge. And I think that's the heart of this discussion about what to do in order to create a mechanism that will amplify those voices. The white people like myself who are trying to be advocates or allies for the people on the margins are doing so because we recognize they don't have some of the advantages to have their voice heard like the majority do. For example, social capital. I'm sure all of you run into constituents at restaurants and bars who will say, oh, I'm concerned about this, but if you're low income or a different race, you don't always have that social capital to rely on for communication. And so our hope, speaking through KIFA, is that there can be some intentional mechanism created that will establish meaningful conversations about race. I would like to just note, and this is on the handout, that we feel there are a couple of parameters that are very important. One of them is just letting people be aware that it's there and exists. And that can be a challenge. I had the opportunity to talk to a couple department heads in the city who are doing great things like economic development with their resources and personnel with hiring. But we're finding when we talk to some of the Black residents in Kent, they're not getting that information and there's a disconnect. So whatever is created certainly needs to be very visible in the community and certainly involving the grassroots. I also, we believe that it should guarantee safety. And by that we mean confidentiality, anonymity. Our group that was working on what we thought we were going to be presenting tonight held some community meetings for Black residents in Kent. We had 2 of them. And they really shared some very heartfelt, heart-wrenching stories. And we invited 3 of them to come this evening to share their stories, and they all declined. And thinking about it, it's probably not surprising. One said in particular, she had to worry about her employer and what her employer might think, which is a sad situation that we have that in Kent. So our hope would be that there would be some outlet for people to privately and safely share information. We also feel it needs to be credible and accountable, and with that, we certainly would like to see the city involved in sanctioning whatever this mechanism is. And we would like it to have the ability to analyze data, to look at patterns, and also recommend solutions. We're not, like the NAACP at this point, we're not recommending anything in particular. Could be staff position, could be a commission. But I will close just by saying that I was curious and went online and did just a little bit of research on racial justice commissions. And there are quite a few of them. There's good reading out there on your handout. I've given a website by a group, a nonprofit that actually serves as a clearinghouse for communities that have done this. And they have a manual online for cities that would like to become engaged with forming a commission. And I also noted 4 of the areas in particular that are common among the commissions that use this particular model. And you'll notice that I included Heart and Soul as one of the areas that would be included as far as the data in such a mechanism. And I feel that by doing so, creating a separate mechanism would complement the work of Heart and Soul. And finally, I just want to say that the cities I found are large cities. I had trouble finding a city the size of Kent, but I think that poses a great opportunity for us, because if other cities can do it, we can certainly not only do it, but do it better. And we have the opportunity to be a role model and set best practices. So on behalf of KIFA, we certainly hope that the conversation continues and we support some type of intentional effort to raise the voices of the minority community. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Further, yes. Name and address for the record.
Renee Rahutsky, hopefully I know how to spell it, 237 Highland Avenue in Kent. I'm going to be very brief. Some of you may know my profession is organizational development, and I realize what we are asking you is a big lift for any city council to do. We appreciated being invited last month to the committee of the whole meeting where Dave Ruler presented all the work that you've been doing, and it's really good work, and we want to commend you for that. And this idea of having a mechanism for this reflection, it's really a feedback loop for things that you're not really able to see with the existing feedback loops. We're not asking you to look for trouble where there's no trouble. We're really asking you to pay attention to what's happening at the margins for things that aren't that's not in your awareness, as especially for those of you who are white, especially for those of you who move in circles that not everybody in Kent moves in. Again, as Christy was saying, when we had these community conversations, we did hear some heart-wrenching stories, and the ups and downs of how friendly Kent has been for especially our Black, Brown, and Indigenous neighbors. And so we're just inviting you to dig deep into the possibility of how we can help make Kent a welcoming place, an inclusive place, not just for people who look like me with white skin, but for our siblings who sometimes don't experience the same sort of inclusion and welcome that most of us feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Further? No other comment from you? Let's go back to council. It's already in committee. I think we'll just schedule it next month.
That's what I was gonna do, is put it in committee.
It's already in committee.
Okay. Yeah.
So the further discussion, it's my understanding, you're gonna ask for time to make the presentation.
I got it.
Is there anything further on the subject?
Wrote it down.
All right, thank you. I just asked.
Mr. Mayor, there's a question.
Can we clarify the date?
It's May 4th at 7 p.m.
I just asked that you keep the comments, gossip, or whatever it is, true. Some of the calls I got from other council members of people telling them unfactual things, it's just been a hindrance to the operation. Be truthful. If you're truthful, this is going to work out.
Okay, can I speak to that? My name is Jen Case. I live at 315 East Grant Street. I really take issue with saying that anybody on the NAACP was untruthful in any situation. So we were invited, I'm the secretary, and we were invited to present tonight. That's not untruthful. So there might have been a miscommunication along the way, but we were invited and we prepared for weeks and hours having meetings with community members for this. And so I don't want comments like that to be heard by the public casting distrust upon a group like the NAACP. This is a group that has been the largest and oldest organization in our country since 1909 that has birthed and run the civil rights movement. And the Portage County NAACP, our branch, is trustworthy, extremely trustworthy, and doing the everyday, countless hours and emotional labor of work to make Portage County, make Kent a safe place for all. I made some notes for tonight, and I was gonna stand back, and I can, but I can't not stand up when somebody says that there are rumors and that the NAACP, whoever it is you're referring to, has been distrustful, and that's just not true.
I sent that as general comment because when this is all over, go to the person that told you some of this stuff and see if it was true.
I don't know what that means.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, are you referring to me?
It was a general comment. Everybody in this room heard it.
Right, because I was gonna speak tonight, I did address the clerk.
Why didn't you speak?
Because you said it was a misunderstanding and that they weren't.
I just said there was some misunderstanding, communications going around.
I don't know what that misunderstanding is, because.
Well, there was some, it was just like somebody sent the thing around that I altered the agenda for tonight. Was that true? I don't know who did. I'm sending that general.
Well, I was concerned that had been removed from the agenda that we were speaking tonight.
Did that happen?
We weren't on the agenda, and we were invited to speak.
You were on the agenda, and it was stated a month ago we were gonna address the letter from the NAACP.
We were invited to give a 45-minute presentation
No.
of data.
No. We will next month.
Okay, that's wonderful, but it's not untruth that has been said.
It never was there.
Well, that's a problem, because we were invited to speak, to present.
I don't know how else to explain it. The
Me neither.
agenda for
Me
tonight
neither.
was to address the NAACP letter that was proposed in December 15th. When we met last month and went over heart and soul, we said the next step was to address the letter that was submitted, the proposal that was submitted to us on that date.
Okay, so I'm wondering where the disconnect was, where we thought we
I don't
were
know.
invited to give a presentation.
You will next month.
That's wonderful.
But you're on the agenda, that's what, but to defend the mayor, he never said that the NAACP was being dishonest. I think there's been confusion, maybe a better word, in terms of what was to transpire, but it's on the agenda. And so that's all I want to say about that. And so I'm happy to have your presentation next week, or May 4th. Obviously, the organization has asked for that, to change it from today, or delay it from today until the following month. So.
Okay, that's wonderful. What I wanna differentiate is a conversation of the council regarding the previous letter from December is different than the NAACP leading the conversation by giving the data and the information that has been gathered as a result of interviews and interactions with the community. So it is different. It's just the council is discussing the letter as to it's different than the NAACP presenting and leading the conversation, which is what we believed we were invited to do. And I'm not arguing that point anymore, but I'm saying when you look over at this group of people and you say, I want to say those rumors aren't true and don't, spread untruths, that is making a comment about the NAACP, whether you said the name or not.
You know, I think we're in it for all the same direction.
That's great.
It's just, we're gonna address it next month again.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Oh.
I know you're done.
Yeah, I know, well, go ahead. Name and.
Yeah, so Charlene Ramus Chesnes, 4451 Newcomer Road, Franklin Township. I wasn't gonna say anything, I was here to support. I am the chair of education for NAACP Portage County. I served as the president's ambassador for DEI for Kent State for President Beverly Warren. And I've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of the students. The reason I'm speaking is because I don't want to leave everybody with the last thought of this conversation being contentious, I guess, or negative. I want everybody to leave here looking forward to May 4th conversation, that it's positive, it's commerce. You know, we are in a college town, you know, talking to students. We want our students to feel positive here. I'm a Kent State alum. You know, I'm not even gonna tell you when I was here, but things have changed in Kent since I've been here. You know, my goal is always to continue to bring positivity to Kent. And so I'm asking everyone in the room to leave here looking forward to May 4th conversation on the value that this would bring to Kent, not only in equity and inclusion, you know, having a conversation. I'm going to say that back when I was here, the city was not connected to the university. Today, the university is part of the city. Our students are part of the city, and commerce that they bring to the city. And so it is very important for us to be very inclusive for our students that come here, and for the folks that live here, and for everyone who has interest in growing Kent. So that's what I'm looking forward to for May 4th conversation. So let's think positive, please. Thank you.
Keyword, positive.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I think we're done now. I mean, I don't want to shortchange anybody, but we're gonna move on. The next thing on the item is the Kent marijuana incentive. Hope you're gonna speak to that.
Yes, as you recall, back in January, this council passed the sensible marijuana Kent sensible marijuana ordinance for the petitions that were presented to council to be placed on the election for this November. We sent that ordinance in its form to the Board of Elections, and they did not like the form we sent it in. So they sent us back a sample of what they have approved in the past. So I needed to get your time and let you know that we just need to pass an ordinance in a form that the board will accept to get this on the ballot in November.
Questions for Hope? Mike?
When's the deadline for that?
August.
Oh, gosh, August or September, yeah,
Oh, okay.
we're
I
good.
was just saying, just like
Yeah.
tomorrow or something?
No, we're
Not
good.
gonna happen in the primary.
No, yeah.
So general election.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
We wanted, I believe council wanted to get the most voters out, so that's the reason they chose the general election.
Yeah, I think it is too late. I'm sorry, I think it
Go
is
ahead.
too late. I think February
yeah.
is for May, so.
Yeah.
Any more questions, Council? Mr. Cool.
Are you looking for a motion now, or are we gonna do something, or?
This would be the same as if it was the first time I was talking to you. We just need a motion to, with an emergency, to bring the ordinance to the next council meeting for you to pass that.
Anybody else? Mr. Ferrer?
What is the ordinance? I'm sorry if I forgot. But I mean, it's just-
Okay,
it's-
it is, the petition basically takes, if it would pass, it basically would take our.
Passes at the electric,
Right,
the
right.
November election.
It passes at the November election. It would take our drug abuse ordinance, and if a person was charged with drug abuse and they were found guilty under our city ordinance, the court could not assess a fine or court costs.
And they have enough signatures to put
Yes,
that on the
yes, they do,
petition.
yep.
And you have, part of your obligation is to move that forward. We talked about that.
Mr. Kumar?
Hopefully this falls within the realm of the question I wanted to ask. So as council members, we have to pass it anyhow. But the question I have is,
have had the fee applied, so they have been receiving it, and they will not. Actually, Rhonda and Angela we looked at different numbers. They ran different calculations. Rhonda, they also looked at different ways of actually configuring it. So while it is slightly less than what was received from some of the other developers, which, by the way, were fees that were calculated and negotiated in ways that were sometimes challenging for developers to follow. It may be a little less on some of those bigger ones, but overall, there's still going to be a significant help to Parks and Rec, and it will be matched by the city.
Wasn't there something they could pay, like the developments, they give land, now is that still?
It is, however, the way it was before, the land.
Parkland.
Yes, the way it was before was the parkland would be proposed, for example, by the developer. In this situation, Angela, as Parks and Rec director, would, in consultation with the board and using the Parks and Rec comprehensive plan, determine whether or not a offer of a donation or a fee, what we would call almost like a fee in lieu. They would do the land in lieu if it actually was something that wanted to be accepted. Under the other language, oftentimes there was areas that were offered and were not wanted because they were under 2 acres or they didn't really support, but there really wasn't always a full way to do it. So oftentimes John Idoni would blend, taking the land and the other. So this does allow for it, but it also allows for the first time Parks and Rec the opportunity to say, well, this doesn't align with our comprehensive plan, so we are unwilling to accept that, and you're gonna have to pay the park fee.
I tried to read this red stuff on there, but it was hard to.
Yeah, the clean
I was
copy.
trying to find it.
Yeah, it is in there, you're right. Yeah. So it is still an option, but this time it'll be the city determining whether or not that donation of land, or in some cases, the construction. We actually had, for example, a walking path that went in with Maplebrook. That was finished out there on Sunnybrook Road. So that was actually calculated in as part of the park fee. But this time, rather than the developer deciding, it will be Parks and Rec, where actually it should always have been that authority.
do we have a motion with emergency?
I'll move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes?
Thank you.
And don't go too far, Bridget, because I think you're,
Oh,
I
Jim,
think
I
we're
got time to say.
done. You're done. Health and Public Safety, Mr. Hamrick.
Yes, the first item on the agenda for Health and Public Safety is Wells Sherman House donations to Health Department. Joan?
Hi, good evening. So Ann Warren generously reached out to me as they closed the rental space for the Wells Sherman House. They had some items that they didn't know what to do with and were in good condition. And so they asked if the health department could receive 3 folding tables, 15 to 18 folding chairs, and 1 monitor screen. And we could actually use those items, and so I come before you tonight to respectfully ask that we would be able to accept those donations.
Questions for Joe? Anybody in the audience? Back to council?
Move to approve.
Second.
With the emergency?
With the emergency, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And Joan, don't go anywhere because you're next again. The Ohio EPA grant notice of Kent City Health Department.
Yes, so we were made aware that we received the Ohio EPA grant. Again, I think in the past, the health department has not come forward to acknowledge this. They just received it and accepted it into the general fund and then moved it over. But I thought with the experience now that we've had with the multiple COVID grants, that it would be a good idea to actually call this grant out. It's the same grant that we've been receiving for years to treat mosquitoes. So we would continue to run the program as we have in the past. It's for a total of $25,000. That includes being able to purchase the more eco-friendly water-based chemicals that are not harmful to bees and other pollinators. And then also hiring interns from Kent State University that gets them a little bit of experience in terms of what public health does in terms of environmental health. So I just, again, respectfully ask that we be able to receive this grant from the Ohio EPA.
Questions from council? Anybody from the audience? Back to council.
I would like to move to approve the emergency.
Second.
Okay, Glenn seconded. Comments?
I just want to say that as a former beekeeper, I always appreciate how even though it's unfortunate we need to spray for mosquitoes, I respect how dangerous mosquito-borne illness is, and I appreciate you trying to balance the need for protecting public health with the need for protecting our pollinators and insects. And I think in the past, there's even been opportunity that if you were a beekeeper, if you had bees, you could call the health department and ask that they not spray.
Yes, we still have to
your
spray
areas.
this.
So that's an option for
Yes, and
people,
isolation.
if they have bees, that they can call and request that. So, thank you for that. I know it takes a little bit of extra effort on your part, but it's much appreciated and certainly for the environment, so thank you.
Ready?
Yeah, that's well said. I just want to say that everybody has bees.
I got 200,000 of them.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Henry. Land use, Mr. Ferrer.
Yes, I called over the land use committee and we talked about the expedited annexation request for the tree. Yes.
Thank you. So DD Tree purchased the former Oak Knolls Golf Course back in 2017. It was all part of their efforts to expand a East Campus as for a master plan that basically is going to support a science and learning center and a community arboretum. They also have additionally purchased the former site of the Franklin Elementary. The elementary is in the city's jurisdiction, but the Oak Knolls Golf Course is in Franklin Township. After evaluating some of the costs associated with developing that parcel into the East Campus master plan, there are costs associated with utility extension, as well as there was some a desire to make sure that the safety services provided to the West Campus are also available on the East Campus, which would have necessitated them being part of the city. So they approached the city and Franklin Township with the desire to submit a petition for annexation. The Ohio Revised Code allows 5 types of annexation, and the first one is called a Type 1 expedited. And it's called that because the owner of the parcel, 100% of the owners of the parcel, or 85% I should say, have to agree to the annexation. There's only one property owner here, so we do have 100%. And both the township that would be affected by the annexation and the municipality that would be accepting the parcel have to agree to an annexation agreement. Through outside counsel and the law department and the community development department, as well as the city manager, we have worked up options, and those terms were accepted by Franklin Township and adopted legislatively by them in a resolution on March 22nd. The terms were outlined in the memo as well as in the agreement, but basically what it will involve is once the annexation is finalized, and I say finalized because it won't need approved, an annexation that is expedited type 1, it basically is as the documents are completed, it is filed with the county, and the county will accept and then redraw the jurisdictional boundary. So it doesn't require a vote even at the county level once we get through the legislative level at the township and the city. So the agreement terms are that the city will reimburse the township for what it would have received in real property taxes from the property if but for the annexation. The parcel, I did want to clarify for the record, does generate about $45,000 in taxes. However, the township would be receiving close to about $5,200 to $5,300 in real property taxes, because as many of you may be aware, the majority of real property taxes actually benefits the Kent City school system. So we would be reimbursing them that amount for the periods that Davey would be working on the actual development of the master plan. And once the site was operational, and they had active payroll there, we would switch to an income tax share for 10 years with Franklin Township. The township would be receiving 45% of the income taxes collected, and the city would keep 55%. This is the exact percentage match that we use in our JED with the Franklin Township. So for those of you that may be wondering what that translates to, that would be about this is an estimate based on anticipated payroll from Davie. About $27,500 would be received by the city when we are receiving income tax from that, and about $22,500 would go to the township. We would continue that for 10 years. At the end of the 10-year income tax year period, all obligations of the city would end, and the parcel would be just part of the city as any other parcel that we currently have. I can answer any questions.
Ms. Schaefer, please.
Yes, so will we be providing water services?
Yes. Yeah, so there is water available on the former Franklin Elementary site. That connection to the site will make, by doing it within the city and using the existing water, it'll be cost savings, significant cost savings for Davie.
Thank you.
Further from council? Questions from the audience? Back to council?
Move to approve the emergency.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, say no. Motion passes. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sedoti is not here. Tracy Walk is not here. Well, I guess I chair.
Yep.
First on the agenda is the update of the new KSU bike scooter program. Jim Bowen, you're gonna speak to this.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. I promise this won't be long, but I do want to show you something as part of it. So.
And they brought props, if you haven't noticed.
What, are you gonna ride it around?
I asked Hope, I thought Hope could do that.
One guy turned the headlight on, it's shining on John Thomas over there. You're the star, John. You got the headlight shining on you.
Yeah, we also brought people from Spin and Kent State to help answer questions. So.
Hi.
Just so everybody knows, Spin started operating a low-speed micromobility sharing program on March 7th as part of the city and Kent State's efforts to reduce carbon emissions and promote traffic management in the city versus building additional capacity on the roadways. In the first 12 days, they had 14,000 trips. And according to the North American Bike Share and Scooter Share program, they estimate that 36% of trips taken on their units eliminate vehicle trips. So that's about 5,000 trips potentially eliminated in those 12 days. So that being said, the last dockless program we had struggled with parking and other misuse of the vehicles. And as these things evolve, we try to get better over time. And Spin has a much better business model to promote a more organized parking of their vehicles. And that's what I'm showing you on the screen. Each of these dots is a geofenced area that where it's seen as adequate parking is available for these units. So a lot of these are at bike racks. So you can click at it and you can see that one I believe is the Kent Co-op's bike racks, and we have them at Panini's bike rack. So they are not free to park everywhere in the city, but almost like parking spots, regular vehicle parking spots, they need to be a little bit ubiquitous so that they can be used properly and efficiently. So how Spin uses this, which is really which really does well incentivizing riders, is they can't end the ride unless they're in one of these geofenced areas. So their ride is, I believe the price of $1 to unlock the vehicle, 29 cents a minute. Right. So if they don't park them in that, they can't end the ride, so they would still be being charged. And from the initial setup, going around and looking at this, you're seeing much more organized parking of these vehicles. That doesn't stop people from knocking them over, whether they didn't set them upright or someone coming through and knocking them over. Some of the geofenced areas have had to be tweaked. We got a picture from the mayor early on of a couple vehicles parked in the middle of a parking lot in the drive aisle that Spin went and moved, and then they relocated that geofenced area. They also have the ability to create no-ride zones so that people can't ride in those areas. So something like the parking deck, there's a no-ride zone. I do want to caution you that these geofenced areas are not very discreet. I mean, you can't get exact, so in some places we have the ability to put down decals and stickers to help formalize it if there are problems in those areas. So Spin has been really good with working with us and the university to adjust these things and address them in their initial rollout. So with me here today, we have Mike, with Spin, Josh, who's your field guy, and Chris Lucas, who's with Kent State University's rec centers, to answer any questions that anybody might have. So.
Jim, do you want to mention the speed variability too?
Yeah. Mike, why don't you head?
Sure. I'll jump in here real quick. My name's Michael Beck. I am the general manager for Spin for what we call our Great Lakes region. It's Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. And then again, this is Josh Souls. He is the lead for Kent and Akron, so he's here on a daily basis. The speed, so the bikes can go up to 20 miles per hour. They are pedal assist bikes. So you'll pedal them and they'll kind of give you a little extra punch to help get up the hills or move a little quicker. The scooters, they will go 15 miles an hour. Now, like you mentioned, we do have different areas where we considered speed to be an issue, and we're able to geofence those areas. If you look at the dark black area in the center of campus there, yep, right there. So that is a speed geofence zone. So we deem that to be kind of a crowded area where we really don't want scooters zipping through at a fast rate. So we reduced the speed there through a geofence that brought it down to, I believe we went to 8 miles per hour. So it's a little over walking speed, kind of a little over a jogging speed, but still not a super high speed that would present an issue to people. Yes, sir.
How many watts are the scooters and the bikes, and how many volts?
I'm sorry?
How many watts and how many volts?
Oh, that might be a answer. You?
That's more technical, yeah, I know.
Yeah, we can get you an answer on that though. So I'll make sure to copy that down.
Heidi?
Yeah, has usership remained high since the very rollout of this? Because I have seen a lot of people using them. What has been the trend? Has it been continuing to rise, or has it leveled off? I'm just curious.
Well, so in the beginning, whenever we launch a program, we see a lot of great interest. Looky-loos, people who want to take a look at it, get a first ride. So we do see that peak, that shoot through to the moon. But then we didn't see it settle out so much here. We did see it settle out a bit when the students left for spring break, and then we see it settle out and kind of lower, the demand lower for weather. So if it's pouring down rain, snow, cold, we see it kind of drop. The demand though has, given all those factors, the demand has remained very high.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah,
So-
got the floor.
Okay, so since it's been really rolled out very well to the campus, I understand, are you planning now to do something besides come to city council to roll it out to the community, so that maybe when the student population does drop, the community is also utilizing these?
Yes, so we like to do what we call tabling. You know, anytime there is, let's say there's a farmer's market down there, a lot by the railroad tracks there. college and, I forget. Thank you. I was just there eating dinner. You know, if there's a farmer's market, that we can have a tabling event where we can talk to the people, we do that. Before we rolled this out though, we had Josh and some members of his team go to local businesses and just door to door to door, handing out pamphlets. They rode the scooters there so people could see it, see what they're talking about, answer any questions, talk about, you know, what to expect when the scooters do hit the street. Typically, so the university was a little more suited for us to kind of focus on the students because we have them there in like the student union or the rec center or things that, you know, the weather just wasn't great for one-on-one conversations with people out on the street. But as the weather gets better and we're able to kind of do outdoor activities, just any opportunity we can tie ourselves into, we want to get out there and talk to people. And I know, yep.
Just really quick, they also reached out to Main Street Kent and the Chamber of Commerce, and if you look at Main Street Kent's email updates and see upcoming events, you see on the bottom of every one of them, the spin is here in Kent, and where to get information on it. So.
Is there on the marquee?
And it's on the gateway sign.
So is there an age limit and, you know?
Yes, age limit is 18, and the way that we verify that is that they have to upload an ID.
I would add that according to the state law, they have to be at least 16. So spin raising it to 18 is an act on their part to make it safer for everyone. So.
John?
There's probably another one. Is there a weight limit?
300 pounds.
I'm safe, we had a gentleman who worked for us who was well above 300 pounds by several hundred pounds and would still ride these. So the manufacturer's weight limit is 300 pounds.
Pretty healthy.
Further questions? Mike?
The red area is parking lots?
The red areas are parking lots, so those are also representing no ride zones. So those are the geofenced areas where if someone's riding a scooter, they may be doing 15 miles an hour and they'll hit the no ride zone. What happens is the scooter will actually talk to them and go boop, 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 boop. In the app, it'll also tell them, so if they pull their phone out to see what's going on, what's wrong, it'll say, you're in a no ride zone, please get out of this area. It'll also disable the throttle. We don't want to stop them. We see some people flying across the parking lots. But what we do is we disable the throttle. So if you see some of these no ride zones, you might think to yourself on the ground, it's not working. I saw a scooter ride right in it. But if you watch for a second, what you'll probably do is see the guy dismount and scratch his head for a little bit, pull out his phone, and then turn around and walk out. So that's the way those are handled.
John, you finished?
Yeah, no, you said the red areas are the parking lots. I saw 3 units parked on North Water and Columbus, but I don't see any red blocks there.
Oh, so the red areas up here, so the large red areas are vehicle parking lots, like for cars and things. We want to keep the scooters and bikes out of those, so those are no parking areas, so, no ride zones. Go ahead.
The red dots are the parking
The
areas?
red dot's the parking, and here's North Water in Columbus. Is this dot right there?
Are you done, John?
Yes.
I do.
So, are these scooters, I know bicycles will probably be able to ride on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Are scooters also allowed to ride on the streets, like on the side of the streets?
Yeah, Mike, I
Like
can
any
expand.
other? Thank you.
Yeah, a couple years ago, the state passed an amendment to their traffic laws, and that's actually where I got the name low-speed micro-mobility device. And in that law, it says that they may be operated on the public streets, highways, sidewalks, shared use paths, and all different locations. So yes, they're allowed.
Thank you.
Anybody else, any other questions? Anybody from the audience want to ask? Yes, sir.
I said,
Yeah.
the age limit you said of 18, is that the same for the bikes as the scooters?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
is there any recommendation or expectation of helmet use by riders?
Yes, actually, we strongly recommend wearing a helmet. I mean, if you want to keep it all in one piece. Also, when we do our tabling events, one of the things that we promised in the contract is that we distribute helmets. And so all someone has to do is come up and ask us for a helmet, and we hand them a helmet. Do you have a rough number how many we handed out so far?
Over 300, yeah.
Over 350 helmets on and off campus here. We typically, anytime we go out to a tabling event, we bring several boxes of helmets. It's just an easy way to prevent anybody from doing anything silly. So.
I've just never seen anybody with a helmet on.
Well, the other thing is once they get on it, they assume risk, and we're all adults. And I've seen plenty of people on the highway on a motorcycle without a helmet. So, but we absolutely recommend wearing a helmet. Yes.
Give your name, and I'm not gonna ask you to come, but speak loudly.
Sorry, Valerie Lane. Question, how many people are managing the bikes that are put in these park zones or these setup areas, because we are seeing them just kind of littered around the city, and my only concern is how much are we managing that and getting them into a new designated area that's not clutter, or like taking up the sidewalks and preventing people from walking their dogs.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So we have a team of Josh, and we have a mechanic back at the shop, and then we have 4 other personnel on a rotation to maintain as much of a continuous operation out here as we can. We have somebody out there right now. Actually, Chris was asking where our van was, and we said it's out there working on scooters. But absolutely, we want to remain responsive to the community, responsive to people walking their dogs. We don't want to block the sidewalk. So on every scooter, Josh, can you point out where sorry, I don't want to get away from my phone. On every scooter, there's a phone number. And we're also getting some stickers made as well for these units. They'll just take a little while. It's on there. There is a number on each scooter. You can call and report where these are, and we'll come right out and pick them up. It was funny, I actually was timing one. Someone from the police department called me and asked, where was that 440? Yeah. Asked us to come move that, and I was timing them how long it took to do it. It was, what was it, 15, 20 minutes from the time I received the call to the time they confirmed it was moved. So the thing is, we want to remain responsive to the community and to the people. We don't want to block sidewalks. We don't want to do what our competitors do and throw things out here and have the public deal with it. It's our company. There are our scooters and our bikes, and we want them there for you to use and the community to use, just to get around, to become a more vibrant community. We found that when the scooters and the bikes are available, like for instance, students who might not have come off of campus because they couldn't afford an Uber or a Lyft or have their own car, they might jump on a bike and come down here and patronize some businesses that are on Main Street. So that's the thing we're looking for. And I just want to say we just really want to make it work. So we've been adjusting points, making sure that they're not cluttering up things. I mean, if we get, I don't know how many we've adjusted so far, probably 20 different points. Because we want to make this work for the community. We don't want to be here as a nuisance. We want to be a partner. Yes, sir.
Do you have any figures on what the run time is on the batteries, or the average distance traveled before the charge goes down?
Mm-hmm. These are great batteries here. So these are swappable batteries. So we don't, our older model was we used to have to take the whole device back to plug in at the warehouse. We've changed that model, so there's a little hatch right there that they can pop open and swap the scooters, which maintains availability to the community. The runtime on each one of these batteries is much greater than our older models, so you'll probably get 3 to 4 solid days of riding on these scooters with between 2 to 5 trips a day.
Mileage?
Mileage, you could probably run it for 30, 35 miles straight on level ground usually. So, someone like my size. I'm not very light.
Not bad.
Got anything done? Mr. Thomas, you had your hand up.
John Thomas, 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Is your organization publicly or privately owned? And where's your home office for your organization?
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's a good question.
Oh, okay. Privately owned. We did have an acquisition from a German company called Tier. They are a scooter company in Europe. They're the largest scooter company in Europe. So they have just recently acquired us, and April 1st was the official date. I don't know what it is, signing date or whatever it was, transition date. And the second, the company is based out of San Francisco. But that is our headquarters. We're here in the city, so what we take pride in is I'm a regional, or just a regional general manager. So, you know, I'm looking at things like the entire state of Ohio and Indiana and Michigan. But what is important to us is that we have people locally in your cities, people who live here and who have a stake in the game. And so that's our operating model, and that's how we're different from the other companies, is that, you know, your next door neighbors are the people who are keeping this program workable in the communities.
Further? Anybody else? Chief?
Yes, I just wanted to...
Do you have a name? And
Yes, I do. William Myers with the Kent Fire Department. And I just wanted to compliment Josh and Amber, who came out to the fire department upon my request to just kind of look at the scooters. I wanted our guys to see where the batteries were, in case there was any issues and so forth. They already have a mechanism in place in case there is a battery fire, and also the storage of the batteries in vehicles and stuff. So it was very interesting and educational for us, and we appreciated their interaction with us. So thank you.
Anybody else?
I just have a follow-up question. Your the number of bikes that are out there, is your data showing that there's too many bikes, not enough bikes? Like, I think this is a great program. I'm just curious, like, how you're using your data to edit where the bikes are and how fast we move them into different zones and where the popularity pickup and drop-off areas are going.
That's a great question. So the data we have, like I mentioned early on, wildly popular program. But we've seen that settle out a bit. We still believe there's room to grow here in vehicle numbers. Typically when we see 2 to 2.5 trips a day on a vehicle, that signifies that we are not satisfying the need in the city. We've been seeing 2.5 to 7, 8 trips per vehicle. And if, like I mentioned, it fluctuates with weather and timing and things. But I guess to more specifically answer your question, is we don't throw a large number out there and let it sit. We have a dynamic fleet. So, I'm sorry, I think I might be too close to the microphone. Let's say fall and spring, the population of Kent grows, and we all know that. And so our number of vehicles that we have out on the streets, those will increase to meet the demand. Now, over the summer, we anticipate demand to go down as, you know, students go home, different things change, and then, like I mentioned, we have a dynamic fleet that we can lower down to meet that demand. It's of no advantage to us to have excess vehicles out here, because once we put them out on the road, they're exposed to weather, wear and tear, whatever may happen to them. And so we want to protect the assets as much as we can, but also meet the needs of the city. And that's kind of a delicate balance that we have to play. Yes, Chris?
I just wanted to add to that a little bit. My name is Chris Lucas. I work for the Department of Recreation and Wellness Services, so I'm the main contact between the city and SPIN and the university. Our goal for us was to start with a really conservative approach. We wanted to make sure that we had, we were thinking about as much as we could ahead of time so that we could have a really safe and successful launch. So that's what we've done. We're really proud of the program that we've facilitated so far, and we're in constant communication with SPIN as far as what do the numbers look like, where are people riding, where are people potentially needing the devices, or where there are too many devices. So we, like Mike's saying, we will continually monitor that and make changes as we see necessary.
Okay, anybody else? If not, this is just an informational thing to council.
Thank you. Good
The
luck.
public. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Next on the item, agenda is a road closure for craft beer festival. Bridget, you're the one?
Yep, this is, the Kent JCs have their Kent Craft Beer Festival, and typically that is on Franklin Avenue. But with the Over Easy taking over the depot space, there were some concerns about access to the parking lot. So the Kent JCs graciously offered to relocate, and they're going to have it on North Water, between East Main and Portage, similar to Main Street Kent's move, in order to not cause any issues. But since it's a new location, it's treated as a new event. So we're just here asking for approval of that alternative location.
I don't see a map in there. What part of water?
It's from East Main to Portage on North Water Street.
All right, I just want generally to give a map.
They actually gave a map, and I actually commented to Amy, I said, this is absolutely the worst map I've ever seen. It is a copy of a copy of a copy. So that's why we didn't share it with you. 'Cause
All right, I just didn't see it in there. All right,
No offense, but I was like, wow.
Well, I guess it's gonna work, but we just didn't see
Yeah,
it.
but everybody knows it's East Main to Portage on North Water.
All right, Heidi?
So it's on the street, the festival itself with the little booths and stuff. By the way, this was really fun event last year. I was there. I worked it. But Heritage Park, or Heritage Park, not Heritage Park, Hometown Plaza.
Yeah.
Will that be available for people to use at least informally? And
I believe it.
because there
Go
was.
ahead. Yeah, Andrew can talk, but you want to talk to Mike?
Yeah, because I have
Give
to say
your
that
name
there was
and
quite a
address,
crowd there, using on Franklin, which was, it was quite the crowd.
Yes, Andrew Medania, 697 Maryland. One of the benefits of having Colin Boyle as one of our members is that we have use of Hometown Plaza for that. So that's actually going to be our VIP area this year. The bank's been very generous with their space, so yes, we'll be using the street for 30 breweries, 4 or 5 food trucks, and then we'll be using the bank area for the VIP and restrooms, that kind of stuff.
VIP, that means anybody can be there, or like tables, or?
Anyone that pays $75 for a VIP ticket.
Just to clarify, Hometown Bank Plaza is private, so that isn't part of your agreement with Hometown.
Right, we just had to drive for our liquor permit to include that area.
Okay. Gwen, you had your hand up?
I did, just one quick, part of the proceeds of this is going, is part of it going to charity, or?
It all goes either back through donations to charity or to leadership trainings for our members. We paid to have all of our members be CPR certified. The proceeds from this, we paid off the outstanding food balance from the free and reduced lunch program before. So it all goes back to the community one way or another, either through charity or through leadership trainings for our citizens, for our members to then become better citizens.
I thought there was a component on it. Are you still looking for volunteers? Because some of us have some experience pouring beer.
Former bartender right here.
John?
How does this affect the drive-through bank in Columbus?
They'll close for the day.
They're gonna close?
Yes. Yeah, we have a very good working relationship with the bank. They're on board with everything. All the business, we had the businesses sign the form again. They're all on board with it. They're glad to have it back there. And I will say, we're glad to be back there. It's going to be a lot easier to enforce DORA. Last year, anyone could buy DORA at Ray's or Taco Tano's, and we had to try and keep them out of our event, which wasn't always successful. Being here, it's not a DORA hotspot, so it'll be just better for everyone involved to be on North Water.
Okay. Is there further? Anybody from the audience? Back to council for the motion to give,
Move to approve.
emergency. Emergency. Any more discussion? Beth, you have any discussion? Who seconded it?
I did.
Heidi?
I just want to say it was a great event. I encourage people to come out for it.
All right, any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We'll drink for that. Okay.
And if he moves the location again, I'm gonna get the map.
I would like the record to state that the drawing I presented to Liquor, which the city also got copied, is even worse than that map.
I'll help you out on that.
All right, that's it for streets and sidewalks. Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeon.
Ms. Baker. NOPEC energizing.
Good evening. I am just here before you for our annual request to accept the funds from NOPEC, who is our energy provider here in the city of Kent. This is an annual grant that has always been made available to the city of Kent as well as all of NOPEC's participating communities. This year, our grant is worth $47,861. I am asking that council accept this and allow us to put this in escrow with NOPEC so that we can use it at a future time when we have a project that will meet the criteria for the grant. Things that we've done in the past have been the reclamation facility and replacing boilers, motors, and apparatuses in that area that needed to have better energy efficiency. And this year, we're currently going to be working on an LED energy efficient conversion program, doing a study on our streetlights.
Questions? Anybody from the audience?
Wait, I got a question. Yes. You just said an energy efficient upgrade on your streetlights.
A study.
Oh, a study.
Yes.
It don't we like pay Ohio Edison to run those?
So we have several different programs throughout the city. A majority of our downtown lights are actually owned and operated by the city, and so therefore we're charged for those. So what we're looking at, we'll take a look at those and several other areas as to how we can, if it makes sense to change them to LED, what that initial upfront cost would be, what our cost of return is, and then when we would see if there is an energy efficiency to that. So we'll be doing that study this spring and summer.
Further questions? Anybody from the audience?
To approve, that's emergency.
Second.
Seconded by Glenn. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
He's right there, he's ready to go.
I'm ready to get this show on the road. Good evening. I just want to request permission for us to dispose of 13 Panasonic laptop computers. They were the computers that we used for our mobile data terminals and our cruisers. We purchased them in 2015 and they were put in service in the same year with an expected life expectancy on them was 5 years. So they are 2 years beyond their life expectancy right now. I talked to our city IT manager and he told me that they have absolutely no value at all to the city. And just as a matter of practice for security reasons and the security of city information, he does not want them to get into anyone else's hands. So we are just asking that they be destroyed. And he uses a third-party company for that will provide us with certificates of destruction for the computers.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask about. So an ecological way to dispose of them might have been to hook up with the Kent State collection, but you have an alternative plan to do so in a ecological
Yeah,
way?
they do it in collaboration with Quality IP. I don't know the exact procedure they use to destroy the computers. Just that, like I said, we ask that they do be destroyed for the security reasons of the data that's contained within those.
Correct, but the recycling of as many components as possible.
I don't believe our IT staff wants any components to be recycled with city data as a component.
Take them up to the range.
Yeah, target practice.
Further questions? Anyone in the audience? Question? Council?
Authorize an emergency.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And Jim's back. I like when you get some money.
We're trying. So, I'll make this short. We've already obtained $15.8 million in grants for East Main Street so far, and we would have been about done. Unfortunately, inflation and the desire to do things as best as possible requires us to pursue more outside funding. So, the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed not too long ago has a program. It's called RAISE. It's a nationally competitive program with a minimum ask of $5 million. So we're going to be asking for $5.25 million to basically finish up the funding for East Main Street. The project fits really well with their criteria. One thing we would say is we added, for this grant, if we're successful, EV charging stations along the corridor on Kent State property to make it more palatable for them to select us. So we're here asking your authorization to submit to FHWA for this grant.
Questions? Anyone in the
Is that the, so on those EV stations, is it possible to get like a Tesla station in there, or is that a whole different ball of wax?
So these stations would be in conjunction with Kent State since it would be along their property. So probably not, because they'll be using their power sources. So they're looking more at like bulk number, like 60 stations, versus running new power that would have the ability to run a Tesla station. But this is early on in the process.
Nice try.
No, it tests on my street.
So we are asking
Don't
for
charge me.
exactly what we need, if, given that inflation's not gonna keep going higher. Yeah, I mean, so is there a risk that that may not be enough by the time we get to doing the project?
We tried to minimize that risk as much as possible within reason.
Further questions? Anyone from the audience? John, you want to hit that?
John Thomas, with the additional funding you're applying for, is any of it gonna be targeted toward making that corridor more pedestrian friendly and safe, and also more bicycle friendly and safe?
Yes.
That was a good, quick answer. Further from audience? Council?
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Further discussion?
You do a great job of collecting grants. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I have one more thing to add as a side note, that Jen has been awarded an award from the American Environmental Council. So, congratulations, well deserved.
Okay.
That's in the motion.
That's in the motion?
That's in the motion, and also, can we have a slap? Can that happen?
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
With Jim's award?
She's been using that joke all day. She wanted Jim to
All
slap.
those opposed? I guess it passes.
Thank you.
We're done, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. See you in 2 weeks.
Just want to clarify something. The motion that was passed for the flag, was it, they form a committee, 5 to 6 people? Yep. 1 to 2 council members? Yep. Okay, and then they're also calling for a design from the public, or that depends on what the formed committee does?
The committee will determine that.
Okay.